Hi everybody, welcome back. Skylines here, and this is another asset creation video. I was hoping to get a Gramercy out in between these two, but kind of ended up just going for both of these because I got a little distracted. Anyway, I'm making a train that's been much suggested. That's something I should make for a long time. It is something I see almost every day actually now where I'm living and working. But it is a Long Island Railroad M3 EMU. And for this, I only actually recorded the modeling process, and I'm slowing it way down. Last episode's time lapse was, I think, more than 10 times sped up, maybe 15 times. It's only about 2.5 times sped up. So right now, I've found some really good orthographic reference from the Metro North Railroad equipment guide. There are a lot of, especially for commuter equipment, there are a lot of places that have just some excellent reference. So first thing I do here is I just create a cube, and it seems really basic, but almost all my stuff starts at a cube. And right now I'm going and adding in edge loops that are positioned at the kind of areas where the shape needs to change. So you can see the two down low that are near the belt line of this train. And a bunch up top to help me curve the roof a little nicer. I added in a couple more here to try and get that nice little step in. I think I changed that later once I realized the actual shape of this thing. You can see kind of the shape of it coming together in the right is definitely looking correct from the front, but it's slightly not so much right on the side view, I guess. I've incorporated the main body and gone all the way down into the lead area, like the plow area. So now I'm trying and going for the side here and trying to figure out how best I should do this. So I take the front, I shrink it down because I'm pretty sure that's going to do it, and it gets me a reasonably close approximation of the shape. I end up completely redoing this, but I figured I'd leave it in just because I think it's important to see, or at least interesting to see kind of my work process on this, because this got the shape awfully close. So one thing I've noticed, I've been looking up, as you can see again, I've got, well, I actually don't have Chrome open now, but if you know how these are shaped, they work a lot like some of the New York subway cars, where it's got this hard edge and then a smooth curve around it. So I went and made sure I had an edge loop on that hard edge towards the top and towards the sides, just so that would be able to work, basically. I'm going through, I added another loop, and I'm trying to cut it up here to be able to get smooth areas for the actual face of this train. Isn't dead flat, it's kind of pushed back a little bit, so you can see me trying to do that now. Just use a quick soft select to see if I can get it looking about right. Realize I'm actually doing this on the wrong side here, I think, if I'm remembering properly. Oh no, wow, I just go for it, okay. Anyway, I'm going through and adjusting some of the shapes, some of the dimensions and things here, and it's just not quite working. It's like close, but I feel like kind of at this point I'm going and realizing it might not be my best shape and plan. So save this thing up, and this is one problem with not speeding up the time lapse too much. You can actually see the two running actions in the bottom of me copying footage off of this. So I decided to open up one of my subway cars to see how I achieved that shape, and I was actually honestly a little disappointed with how it turned out. I thought I was just gonna be like cool and just copy this because I know that the trains are so similar, but it's pretty ugly, and the way I used to do it makes me really kind of want to go back and tune it up. That subway car is actually also a little incorrect dimensioned, so oops. Anyway, I try to add in an edge loop there with edge flow, which is just a little tool that lets things curve more naturally, and it just kind of glitched out on me. So this is kind of when I first realized that the modeling, like actual technique that I used, isn't great. So generally speaking, you want to keep small polygons next to small ones and big ones next to big, and kind of grow and shrink. So those small, tiny little ones at the top aren't great modeling etiquette, I suppose. But I'm working here and trying to round out this curve, and you can see my reference doesn't quite line up, which of course is always a ton of fun when your reference doesn't line up, even though it really should. So I do a little bit of improvisation, I suppose you could say. Excuse me, trying to get this to work. But as we continue here, I'm hardening these edges and just making sure they're all they're all about correct, and it's just not quite working. This is when I separate that plow area and try to make sure that that's looking as good as I can make it, I guess, and it's just the shaping's like 70% of the way there. But unfortunately that doesn't quite do, and I get a lot of weird like corners like that I just kind of don't really know what to do with this geometric setup here. So I go through and I'm moving around individual vertices now and trying to get a smooth shape. So one good way to get smooth shapes is you use those orthographic views and you try to get smooth curves in every view. Of course now I get rid of that because I'm just trying to puzzle it out and figure out what the best way to deal with this corner is. I end up just giving up and saying, you know what, let's cut this across low down, which is interesting. This again goes away later. I end up just scrapping and completely restarting the whole front. But I've created a 5-sided polygon down there and didn't notice until just now, I guess. So maybe it's a good thing that I ended up totally scrapping this method of doing this. But yeah, you want to generally try to avoid 5-sided polygons just because the game triangulates all these things anyway. I don't think I've noticed yet. But you want to, the more control that you can have in how the game meshes these out, the better. So taking more of a look, trying to see if there's anything nice I can make this look like. Looking around the back, seeing if there's any hint, I guess. So now, yeah, there we go. Now I open up Chrome. Open this all up, Long Island Road M3. Looking to try to figure out any secrets, any pieces of geometry that I might have missed or anything like that. I'm gonna speed this up a little bit now, just so there we go. All right, cool. Yeah, so I'm going through, I'm checking my reference, trying to find out, and trying to find like good pictures. It's very strange how weird a lot of these pictures are of this train. I mean, it's been around in different designs since like the 60s. So you'd think that there'd be more imagery of it. But I had another edge loop there. I think I just noticed the 5-sided polygon right there. Now I'm screwing around, like lowering pieces of it, and it's just not doing it for me. You can really see I'm kind of working very slowly and carefully and awkwardly trying to shape this all out, and there we go. Cut off, gone. Don't need it anymore. Lining up all the bottom parts, and I just have an empty end now. So I'm trying to figure out the best way to do this, and to hilariously, it's like trying to find the best way to recap the end now that I deleted it all. And I decide that the best way is just to cut the whole damn thing in half, delete the left half, and mirror it onto mirror the right half back onto the left half. So I'm doing that there. Since I work very small compared to the grid, the actual regular mirror options usually merge multiple edges together, which I don't want. So I end up having to do it manually and then merge the pieces of geometry together myself, but that's fine. It's just a minor annoyance. And now I try doing this in a smarter way, I guess, or in a way that really is probably how I should have started, and I knew better. But I'm going through, creating some edges down, just straight down from the top, from some of the edges that go along the roof, and instead of just having them go over, they go down off the front now, which is a good way to get larger pieces of geometry and just like a smoother sort of mesh. It's a lot smarter to do it this way, I guess. Looking around, just trying to figure out what to do. So the reason I wanted to do this one a lot slower is because this was actually pretty quick. This took me only about an hour to model out fully, which is very different from actually only needs one type of car too. So only about an hour in terms of the modeling department, and the texturing wasn't too difficult either. Just had that nice reference, could look out the window of my office and see these things parked, so there we go. Looking around now, this is the Mel editor, which is Maya's little scripting language. I don't know it that well, but what I do know is that I can use it to copy paste, so I can I shrink things a lot down to as close to 0 as I can, undo it, then open up Mel, copy the command of me when I shrunk it, and then delete it or change the numbering to make it exact, and then re-edit it, basically, and then re-export. So right now you can see I'm just adding in more edge loops to try to figure out a good way to shape the face. This one, it very intentionally ran down this right-hand side, adding 2 edge loops here to allow me to kind of get that little curved bevel in at the bottom, and the top, of course. Now, it would have been nice to be able to use more, but we were kind of getting a little high in try count for me, and especially for me doing a big box commuter train. It's like that shouldn't be tremendously high in triangles. So I'm going through now and just starting at the middle. It's a very weird kind of way to do this, I think. But I start shaping out the front just 1 edge loop at a time. So I'm going through right now and grabbing these. I think, yeah, so I add an edge loop right here just to, just a really small one to kind of start the curve ever so slightly rather than it just stepping down. I've looked at the real ones, and even though the blueprint says that these don't do that, you can kind of see how the blueprint just genuinely is just straight until it bends down at a pretty sharp angle. It definitely looks a lot rounder in real life, so I figured I could go a little bit rounder and still get the correct sort of look. So going through, I'm now extending the edge lines or the edges along the side of that hard face on the front to where they're supposed to go, and now eyeballing the rest to try and get those smooth curves. So looking for smoothness in the front, smoothness in the front view, in the top view, and on the side view, and that's kind of how you know you've got a really clean shape. So looking around now, I'm actually pretty happy with this. Go through now and make sure I grab all the right edges and harden them up to get that extra flat kind of bevel piece on this. Go on the bottom, figure it's not actually really sharp. It needs some sort of smoother, nicer chin, but again, it's still slightly rounded, so it's important to make sure that it's not. You don't want to do everything based off of one orthographic piece and kind of ignore subtle areas of shaping. So now I have a quarter of this train done. Just a very small piece. I've deleted all the rest. Tabbed out right now. I think I'm probably looking at reference. So I really wanted to try and make the back of these cars as detailed as I can, but there's no reference for it. So I kind of had to take a wild guess on how these cars connect together. I've tried to walk down to the platforms at Penn Station, and they're not huge fans of that, so I stopped. Anyway, I dragged the back out and start trying to figure out a good way to do this. Ended up just grabbing the whole edge, extruding it all. There's that same melt technique where I copy paste, switch it to 0, and now that's a perfectly flat edge. Move that to the middle there, and merge my vertices, which is a nice little way. So now it has a back cap on it. So going through now, I'm back into my internet browser, looking for probably some more reference to the back. So I'm like, I gotta be able to find this. But these cars come in married pairs, so the center has a non-removable coupler. I guess not removable unless you are in the shop and really kind of want to get these things separate. So going through now, and I believe I'm tuning up the bottom here. Oh, nope, I'm adding the insets for the doors. So I was looking around, and yeah, it was a little plain. So I figured we should inset the doors a little bit. I do this kind of not very inconsistently on my trains, because a lot of it depends on if I want to use the cars as something else later. So my Viewliner cars, for example, my Viewliner baggage cars, the Amtrak ones or the CityLink ones, don't have recessed baggage doors because I wanted to use the same mesh for the sleeping car as well. So I'm not going to use this mesh for anything else. It's a very unique sort of rounded shape, or I'm not going to use it for anything anything that isn't an electric commuter car. Just because there's one model, this one that I'm making now, which used a third rail pickup, and then there's a very similar one that used a pantograph. And for now, I'm just doing the third rail one. I'm considering doing the pantograph one, which could be pretty cool. I do see them at Grand Central, and I do want to capture kind of as much of the New York City commuter rail and New York City railroading scene as I can in Gramercy, because this one is, of course, unlike the West Coast Daylight Ocean View Limited, this one is definitely created for Gramercy and for some people who've requested it. But in making this, I'm not quite sure how much I want to go, because every model I make takes me a lot of time. So right now I'm just starting work on the plow, so I was just now looking at the plow and trying to figure out how these are actually shaped, because just these line drawings unfortunately they help a lot, but they're not perfect. Like, I can't quite parse everything's shaped, particularly like positive and negative space. So the actual, you're going to see right here, the actual plows have a gap in the middle for the large coupler, and you can kind of tell based on the actual geometry of this thing, or based on the drawing, but it's really hard to figure out how it all should work. But this is it actually. If you're seeing it, this is roughly the actual dimensions of this thing pulled out, and with what space is positive and which space actually exists and which is a whole actually figured out. So I'm very happy about how this all kind of came out down here, because I was looking and just figured this thing needed detail somewhere, right? And the front kind of pilot and plow is where I ended up putting a lot of it, just because even though it's not the most efficient poly count wise, just in terms of the rounded shape and the fact that I left it a little poly heavier than I should, I suppose. There are definitely ways that I could have cut it down, ways I definitely used those on like the subways and things, but figure this is just so much larger than a lot of the subway cars, so figured why not. So I then imported my Amtrak car, because both of these in real life use open or inside bearing trucks. So I'm scaling it up and trying to get it perfect, and then you can see just a second. Yeah, I zoom in and whoa, wait a minute. Looks like I got lazy when I made my Amfleet cars and used outside bearing trucks, which of course will not do anymore. So I ended up pulling my wheels from an unusual source after this. So go on, you can see me delete that there in disgust. And I actually used my JFK Airtrain, which uses outside bearing trucks as well. So you can see there, deleting everything I don't need. I don't need the Airtrain reference. I don't need the Airtrain body. I don't need the Airtrain signs and everything. In fact, all I need is just one truck. So I go in, I move it up, I delete this stuff, grab this all, and scale it up, just like it. So it fits. I mean, it's Airtrain cars are very, very small. These are much, much larger. So I'm scaling it until it fits, moving the wheels to be in the right proportion. Then I realized the bottom of my car just isn't really gonna do as I'd made it. So in goes a little edge loop, which is actually something I'd been planning on making previously, just because I wanted. You'll see. I don't know if the UV layout's in this, but I'm extremely happy with the efficiency of the UV map that I did, or of the UV layout that I did. It's just it's very carefully done and very, very efficient. So I think that if you look at the side of the car, it's got like 5 big long windows, and in my UV map, that's only textured once. So it uses that piece of texture 5 times, which just means I can pack on a ton of extra pixels, and everything can be extra sharp and nice and crisp in the finished product. So anyway, right now I'm going through and checking my soft and hard edges over everything. It's just, I notice a lot of people don't do this in City Skylines modeling. You get a really cool feature with a 3D model where you can choose whether each edge is interpreted as a hard, sharp corner, or whether it should be kind of a soft angle between the two. So it's the reason that a cylinder can look like a cylinder even though it's faceted, or it can look really angular if you're looking at the side. So you can see, I guess the front of this train is the best example, where I was talking about the hard edges earlier. So you can see, again, soft edges make up the roof, which is why it looks like it has a gentle curve like it does in real life. I don't know, I really like I feel like it's an extra tool that a lot of people just kind of forget exists. Anyway, going through, looked up some like YouTube videos of the train passing, trying to find pictures of the side detail and everything. Yeah, so right there you could actually see me soften those edges, which makes this hexagon, since it's so small, look like a cylinder, which is totally viable. But I decided to actually do the suspension arms and things. I think these are suspension arms. I might be totally wrong. But I decided to actually do those on this just because it was kind of feeling like it was lacking in detail somehow. Ugh, sorry, yawning again. But it was kind of feeling like it was lacking in detail, which, kind of wasn't, but... So So go through, mirroring the polygon to get this nice V shape, merging it all together again. Inside faces, of course, have been deleted, which is nice, so it saves a few tries that way, but obviously pulling out 10 everywhere you can definitely adds up. So this sort of piece, I don't really know what it does in real life. I know a lot of people think I know everything, especially, like I had a few messages after this, like, wow, you really know your trains after looking up all this different stuff for the ocean view, but maybe not quite as much as it seems. But anyway, I'm adding this shape on, quickly checked to make sure it also existed on the other side, because I really didn't want to have to figure out a whole additional set of details, because that's just a big pain in the ass. But anyway, we're getting sort of close to the end of modeling for this, actually, because after I finish this, the detail's pretty much done. So, didn't record the UV and didn't record the texturing of this, just because I wanted to be able to take the same sort of length of video and just let you guys watch the modeling portion of the whole thing a little bit more in depth and a little more careful. Or a little more carefully, in fact. I could kind of explain the techniques that I'm using a little more. Not quite sure if I did that 100% in this commentary. This is the headlight, so I noticed that it was probably a retrofit. Seems like a retrofit for sure, adding these large high beam headlights. So I use the same technique, just cutting this thing in half and shaping it out, trying to get it all looking good in one half before duplicating it onto the other side. So I'm going right now and just seems like randomly selecting edges. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so selecting edges, trying to figure out what should be beveled and how much everything should be beveled. I think like 2 or 3 is generally as high as I go now. I think it gets enough of the effect across in cities without being a huge pain. So looking at more, it turns out these like angle down slightly towards the front. I'd found or paused like a YouTube video or found a pictures on like actually looking at these headlights. This is like one thing that there was good reference for. What am I doing now? Just experimenting with that pilot a little more, trying to figure out how to get this plow looking correct and looking like it should, and kind of fitting in with the rest of the body of this train. Go for the coupler. Now usually I copy them off of another train just to make sure they interface correctly, but they're like same sizes and same heights, but I've been getting a little lax with that lately, and these should never be coupled with anything else. Like when I'm doing my freight trains, it's super important that all the couplers line up, but the way these cars work is they run as trains of themselves. They never, like I'll never do something like the other commuter trains where you have a locomotive and like a few different car types you can download. These will only exist in one way. Anyway, so now I'm trying to figure out what the hell to do for this like diaphragm thing back here. This is the part that is kind of improvised. I get the nice side, which is of course very handy, the side view, but it just felt a little like too narrow for me. So I go through now and yeah, I widen it up a little bit, which is probably not realistic, and I haven't been inside these cars in a long time, so I don't know how wide the doorway between cars is. When I do that, I add the drawbar just like I would a regular coupler. And that's about it, actually. So just going to thank you guys for watching so much. It's really cool. I was really happy with the positive feedback of the last one. So I'm just going to kind of let you guys watch this thing drive by, and be sure to subscribe if you want to see more videos similar to this one. And I'll see you next time. Thanks again for watching, and see ya.